Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Flight Path. We are so excited you are here, and as always, we have a lot to talk about here on the R&D podcast for Tern. If this is your first time that you're tuning in, this is where Brad, our head of design, Molly, our head of product, and me, CEO and co-founder of Tern, talk about everything that we got done from a product perspective over the past week. And so if you are a Tern user, if you're considering using Tern, maybe you're an agency partner of ours, we think this is the best place to make sure that you're up to date on all the most important things happening in the Tern universe. So with that, we're going to go ahead and jump in as we always do, which is with a week in review. And Brad, we're coming to you first. How was your week?
My week was actually really great. On Tuesday of this week, last minute, I got to go on site with a host agency that we're like talking to about potentially adopting Turn, and it was just so much fun to meet people in real life, to see in person like office space for travel agencies. I just kind of forget sometimes that still exists when most advisors we talk to are just kind of globally distributed everywhere. And we spent a bunch of time Katie and I spent a bunch of time with the finance team at this host agency, just learning all about like how they actually manage their finances, kind of the challenges and pain points they have today, and like scheming about what kind of like additional improvements we can make on top of our current like commission reconciliation features to like streamline their workflow. So it was just really fun, really cool day. And yeah, I was really grateful that I got to spend some more time with
And
folks in
speaking of in
person.
person, you had some guests, I think, visiting you this week in your hometown, didn't you? Or
Not my hometown.
your
Yeah, in
current town?
Philly. Sure. Our, but a bunch of our engineers were in Philadelphia for an engineering conference. And the result of that was basically every night this week, Jack and I like took them to some restaurant that we like in Philly, which was great, but also exhausting because we like went out every night this week. And normally that's like a once a night thing or once a week thing. But yeah, spent a bunch of time again, just like seeing people in person is always so great, but a little tired. Gonna need to
Yeah,
recover
that's
this
fair. Well, you
weekend.
have exactly one weekend, which we'll get to in a minute on that topic. But before we jump into that, Molly, how was your week?
It was good. It was kind of a bit of like highs and lows. We're going to talk about this. There was an incident with sending multiple emails to clients on behalf of advisors that was definitely a low light, and things that we're going to like unpack and learn more about as a team. I also had some wonderful highlights. I got on multiple calls with this just absolutely wonderful nonprofit who plans trips for children and adults with like life-changing illnesses and things that prevent them from traveling otherwise without like this like agency basically helping plan these trips. And hearing about like the lengths that they go to make these trips special was just so moving and so wonderful. And they were both like, I was helping them with how to use Turn more effectively for these types of trips, but also just hearing about the impact Turn has had so far and helping them plan way more trips than they'd ever be able to. It was like really put into perspective the work we're doing and the impact that travel can have in people's lives, and especially travel that's planned and curated by advisors. So I don't know. I have a hard time even talking about it without getting emotional, because it was so meaningful and moving to just hear their stories firsthand. And they're just like the most incredible humans, like just hearing about their lives too. So that was by far the highlight
I
of my week.
the stand up where it was like you and Ursula kind of talking about like just the reflections of this and something that sort of happened organically. Now it's like, yes, like how can we support this? How can we get involved? But we talk a lot about this idea that like travel can change lives and like have an impact, and like then you see things like this and it's like so much bigger than you even think about on a day-to-day basis. So it's like really special. Um, yeah, it's definitely been a whirlwind of a week. It's like one of those where I don't really know what day it is. We're at yet another conference. Katie and I are here at GTM North America in Fort Lauderdale, and so kind of in the midst of like one-on-one appointments and all the different sessions. And I'll tell you what, to be an advisor at one of these events has got to be exhausting because it's from 7 a.m. till 7 p.m. They are stacked schedules, but finding these kind of little moments to record podcasts and catch up on things has been really good. But it's been a fun week generally. I mean, obviously some lowlights that we'll get into here in a minute, but just continue to watch the team grow, continuing to see some of these products evolve has been it's been really neat. So with that, let's jump into kind of some of the kind of meat of the topics that we have today. We are going to start with the low light. One of the things we kind of talk a lot about at Tern is this idea of always leveling up. We also are big believers. It's the reason we do this podcast, is in being transparent. We love to celebrate when things go well. We love to celebrate when new things are shipped and all these different pieces. But when things don't go well, I think there's this tendency sometimes to want to hide and not talk about it. And it's one of the fastest ways, we believe, to erode trust. And so when we have these types of incidents that we'll talk about here, we like to own it. We like to make sure that we're transparent about like what happened and like what we're doing to make sure it doesn't happen again. So with that, Molly, do you want to kind of tee up a little bit of what this incident was, and then we can kind of jump into what kind of the next steps are and how we're approaching it?
Yeah. So basically what happened was we had this like inbound report that duplicate emails were going to certain clients around birthday emails. And it turned out it was specific to when you set the like logic to send the email 6 months ahead of time. It was doing this weird thing where it would set the current year to the current year instead of the next year when it was calculating the next run date. So anyways, it was actually this like fairly niche issue that was only happening to a few advisors. But then the fix that we did, that we tried to get out really quick because we don't want any sort of like duplication of emails going out to clients ever, that fix actually created a much larger issue where other advisors started to experience duplicate emails going to their clients. And especially bugs like this related to having a bad client experience, it just like hurts my soul. Like we just like really, really take that so seriously, and we cannot apologize enough for that having happened. To give a little peek behind the curtain about what happens on our side when we discover those things, we jump on the fix right away. So we fixed it like I think within an hour of actually realizing this was an issue. We understand the full impact, and then we do an entire team, what we call retro, on the incident that occurred, what the root cause was, and what we need to change from our internal process to make sure it doesn't happen again. So that's happening this afternoon, and we'll have like very clear next steps to make sure that type of issue will not occur moving forward. And I also, I think we could even do a better job too with some of the ways that we're communicating when those incidents happen to you as advisors, and anything that you could share with your clients on like, this was a technology problem kind of thing, like just helping empower you to make sure that you're addressing it with your clients. I think there's been some really good feedback around that too. So not just doing a retro around the engineering piece of the incident, but also just making sure our holistic approach to all parts of the incident response plan is leveling up, I think is something that's on my mind.
Totally. And got anything you want to add on that before we jump in?
Yeah, maybe just like, I think the thing that's been on my mind is just making sure we own these things when they happen. I think there's like I don't know, it's just like we're doing so many things. At the moment this pops up, I just feel this immediate sense of like, oh no, like we need to like immediately jump in, figure out what's going on, and like make sure that we resolve the situation as soon as we can, and help you like communicate to you, help you understand what happened. Because like, I don't know, I can imagine it's just like very hard. Like if you've sent tons of emails to your clients, all of a sudden they're like, their inbox, their spam, they're like, why are you doing this? What's going on? Like we realize how much work this puts on you when things like this happen. And so we're just like, really want to make sure that we we go back to the team, we understand exactly what happened in this situation, and then have of course try to make sure this specific thing doesn't happen again in the future. But also, like Molly mentioned, just like better comms on our side too, that will help you to understand, and then also things that you can help communicate to your clients exactly what went down.
And I think maybe just like for everybody's context, like we have a lot of processes in place that we go through when doing this, that kind of shipping updates to production, that like should have caught these types of things. And so when Molly talks about this retro and this like deep dive that's happening this afternoon, it is really asking this question of, why do all the things that we have, like how did this slip through the cracks, right? Like why do all these checks and balances that we have in place to make sure that these don't get shipped out to production, they get caught well before they get out to you, why didn't it work here? right? Because we really do hold ourselves to this high standard, and that is because, as Brad and I both said, like, you trust us to be the platform that you are running your business. You trust us to have your client communications go out from here. And so we take this extremely seriously, and across the team, we're really making sure that we understand what's happening, and we're putting in place, kind of process adjustments and updates to hopefully ensure that this like never happens again. So again, I think that there's this like sort of tendency sometimes when things go wrong from a tech perspective that you like just want to hide, you just want to like not talk about it. And that is like very intentionally the opposite of how we want to operate. You can trust that if something goes wrong, we're going to tell you what went wrong. We're going to learn from it, and we're going to level up from it. And so if you have questions on this, I would say like feel free to reach out directly. The last thing I'd say, I saw some early chatter about this in the Facebook group, actually, from I think the initial issue that Molly said. And I was just kind of like, hey, can you reach out to support? One thing I'll say is the Facebook group is probably the worst way to flag these types of things in a lot of ways. Like if you see something like this and it's related to email or communications, like, if you're going to post in the Facebook group, that's fine, but please also send it to support and just make it very clear, like, this is a bug that I found. I need a human to review this, and I need a response urgently. And like the AI should be able to handle that, and it should help bubble it up. So just wanted to kind of share that as well. We do have sort of that type of system in place that it should escalate. But any other kind of thoughts before we move on? Yeah, Molly, go ahead.
Also, just to Scott, who emailed me directly, and so I was like, yeah, just thank you, Scott. You helped get our eyes on it really quickly.
And I'd say like too, like we've given our emails out multiple times on this podcast. Like if there's some like critical bug like that where you're like, this is impacting my business, or like, again, if it's just like a feature request, we'll probably route you through like Candy and things like that. But like if there are things like that, it's like David@Tern.travel. You can email me directly. I'll probably be on a flight, so maybe also email Molly at Tern.travel, Brad.
Yeah.
No,
make sure.
Yeah. The right way to do it. Yeah.
Support is always monitored, and you can also tag us in. But like support is probably the place where you'll make sure there's always coverage.
And that's like very important, right? Because like we are traveling a lot. There's a lot of these different things going on. Like it should be support first and foremost, either via the in-app chat or help@Tern.travel. Either one of those works. They both go to the same place from our perspective. And then secondarily, if you are trying to put all the smoke signals out, those are the other things that you can do. But hopefully there's not very many times that you need to put all the smoke signals out. So the normal channel should work. Since we're talking about that, like the reason we funnel everybody to support is not because like we don't want to talk to you, but it's because like we actually have tracking that radiates out from Intercom, which is the tool across all aspects of the organization that help us actually make sure that we're updating you, that we're making sure that we're tracking response time. So not to go down a tangent there, but anyway, we wanted to talk about that. We wanted to make sure that like, people had a look into kind of how we're approaching this. Anytime these types of incident comes up, like one, it's all about prevention. Like, how do we make sure they don't come up very often? Two, it's like once they come up, it's like, how do we fix the problem as fast as possible? I think there's opportunities to do that better, to level up comms, but like fix the problem as fast as possible, and then make sure afterwards we're reporting back to all of you, and that like we're holding ourselves accountable for updating you on what happened and what we're doing to make sure it doesn't happen again. So with that, before we move on, Brad, Molly, any closing thoughts there? With that out of the way, we can switch gears to some fun stuff. We did actually ship something that has been asked for since somebody actually reminded me of the webinar where we launched forms, which I think was November of 2023. And since that day, people have been asking for this update that finally just shipped. So it is finally here. And Molly, do you want to kind of talk about what we did?
Yes. And fun fact, I joined maybe like 2 weeks before that webinar, and it was like, here, Molly, there's these 5 features that none of them are actually launched yet, and we don't have any plans to launch them, but the webinar's there, so try to get these out. And I was like, thank you.
We call that onboarding at Tern. Yeah.
That webinar, starting when we launched the description of all of these forms, feedback that we heard immediately was, hey, I often have this concept of like a lead traveler or somebody who is filling out information for multiple contacts. And the way that the contact information form was set up, is you can only do one contact at a time. So you have to like basically submit, if you have like a family of five different forms in order to fill out everyone's key information that the advisor then needs to like make bookings and that sort of thing. And so, yes, since the dawn of time, since the dawn of Tern, we've gotten feedback. Can you make it easier for us to cycle through that contact information all in one form? We did our first major improvement towards that today or a few days ago, and then we have more to come. So I'll kind of let Brad maybe speak to more of the specifics there.
Yeah, well, luckily we like solved half of this problem a few months ago when we made updates to the trip request form so that you could customize like what details you're collecting from the traveler. So it's like everything you could do in the contact form, you could at least pull into the trip request form. And like, oh, we're onto something here. How do we like translate that over to the contact form? So for the most part, we didn't have to like figure out a bunch of new stuff. We like had a pattern that we'd already like built, tried, tested. People were like, I love this thing. Can you also just make it work over here? And turns out our engineers did some digging, and it was not too hard to move that over there. There's definitely some considerations we had to make around like, what do you do if you already have a form that's built out where you have these contact pieces spread across multiple pages, and all of a sudden you pull in this element that's like, okay, now I want to let multiple contacts fill all these things out. Well, you can't actually spread them across multiple pages then, because you're like in very weird scenarios where you have like contact 1, 2, 3, and you fill out half the fields and you have to like add them again. I'm making it even more complicated just explaining it, but basically you have a nice little solution. You're like, I want to collect information from all of them. We just automatically move those fields within that same section that allows you to fill it all out at once. So should be pretty easy to change your forms up to make them work this way if you want to let people fill information from multiple contacts, but then also to still have like form level questions, like the lead traveler needs to agree to terms and conditions. They still just have to do that one time, and you don't have to do that for like each individual traveler filling out the form. So really excited about this.
And then maybe the last thing I'll add is like, if you do have cases where you want like all 5 travelers to agree to certain terms and check some boxes, first of all, you don't have to use this element. It's basically completely under your control. So you can actually have forms that you send to each of those individuals for them to fill out themselves, which is another thing I just appreciated about the thought that the team put behind this feature, not just thinking about, oh, this is a common request we get, but also like, what about the alternatives that people wouldn't want to lose that type of capability? So you really have, I think a lot of the feedback we've gotten around forms is give me more control over these things. Don't try to like be too smart and then like I actually don't have the control that I need. So I really appreciated the thinking behind making sure the flexibility was there.
And just on that part, right? I mean, this is the reason we didn't do this before, was like trying to wrap our heads around the complexity, both from a backend perspective and also from like the UX perspective, was like a project. And so to Brad's point, we were able to kind of chip away with that on the trip piece, and have now made this, I think really pretty easy to understand and like incredibly powerful. And so just really, really excited about that. I think, just very quickly, like as a visual, in case people are wondering, when you're in a form, you now have this new multiple contact element, and you can sort of drag that over. This is an existing trip request form, convert this into kind of multiple, and now you have this section where you can start to add and loop through that for each person. So if you're trying to convert those forms, it's like pretty straightforward to do that. And I think like really easy for your clients to be able to actually start to kind of manage that. So really massive leap forward, I think, in the way the form product is working, and we've got a lot more coming, which is really exciting. With that out of the way, we're going to keep moving on things that we're making a lot of progress on, continuing with the text editor. I think it'd be interesting to have like a report on what percentage of Flight Path podcasts we've talked about text editors. Like, I feel like at this point, it's got to be the majority. And this week's going to be no exception. But I think like, hopefully if we graphed it, it'd be like lots of conversations about text editors, and then it's going to start to drop off here pretty soon because we're making progress. So Brad, what's the latest?
David, I don't think you know the like Tern 1-2 special where we launch something and immediately it's like, this is great, I love it. And also, can I have these 10 more things? So I think text editor's here to stay. I'm sure there's going to be more and more and more people continue to want as they see the new one roll out.
I can dream, Brad. I can dream that we don't have to talk about text editors anymore, but thank you for that.
I mean, I'll talk about them all day. All right, so big update here is that really we're just rolling it out to more places across the product. So now it's available in your terms and conditions. If you're editing there, should be a much better experience. I know people are like just trying to get their terms over from like a Google Doc or PDF. They're like, oh my gosh, this is and so like now should like be more familiar to you to just be able to use the same types of controls that you use in Google Docs or Microsoft Word or whatever that might be. Also available on forms, on tasks, and also on agency suppliers. If your agency uses that feature and they keep documentation about their suppliers, that now they can use the new text editor to create that content as well. So chugging along, and we're getting really close to having this available on actual itineraries and activities. And I'll hand it over to Molly to share more about that.
Yeah, like with these latest set of rollouts, we basically have two remaining big chunks. We have trips and activities, which I think we talked about last week, is also dependent on making sure we're rendering those things correctly on our mobile app. So we've done all the work, we've done all the testing, we've done all the mobile work. We need to get the mobile app basically submitted to the app stores and approved. And we're not going to try to get anything out before the weekend. We don't want to, for rollouts of kind of this high impact, we really, really closely monitor them on the support side, on the engineering side. So we like to do that, not like on a Friday, typically with this type of broad scale rollout. So early next week, we should be able to roll out the editor for your trips and activities, which is so exciting. I think that's just going to be huge. That's by far like the biggest place that people are using the editor today. And then right after that is the last chunk, which is email and messaging. So I think in like 2-ish weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, we should be like fully rolled on all of those core areas. I think it'll be some unknown on how much time email and messaging will take us, but we've planned most of that work. And so, then we should just be in the mode of making it even better with your feedback, which I'm sure we'll start to get. So,
and I think this idea of like you said, we're sort of saved the best for last. We talked about this on the podcast. It's going to be really exciting once that's on the kind of activities and everywhere there. And just, I know folks listen to this sometimes the day it comes out, sometimes afterwards. Like when we talk about the weekend, we're thinking about the kind of 12th and 13th of July. That's kind of the weekend that we are not rolling it out for. The following week is when we expect this to start to go live. So just a little date note. If you're listening to this on Tuesday of whatever, the 15th, it's not that weekend. Anyway, date caveats aside, depending on when this gets published, that is very exciting. And it also ties in, sort of to this like broader update around kind of mobile that we're working on. And Mo, I think you're going to keep talking about that, right?
Yeah. So we're cooking on the mobile app side. We did our first approved new app last week. That's kind of a foundational improvement to make sure that the like login and first time client experience and like account creation, as well as like settings, are both just more polished and more professional look and feel, all supported on like the native app, so that we're not doing like clunkier things to direct to mobile web in a way that feels jarring for your clients. We have the kind of buttons are now black instead of blue, which might not seem like it's that big of a deal, but it will be pretty cool because when travelers are signed up and then click into your trips, they can see your custom branding without it feeling like it's clashing. So again, first of many. We're actually quite far along at the next improvement, which is when your clients log in, actually making it easier to see upcoming and current trips versus past trips as like two different nav options. So I know that's going to be a really hype one. And then hopefully basically on a weekly basis from there, we'll be able to share kind of additional consistent improvements on the client mobile app. So very, very exciting stuff. And
I personally am so excited about the tab for like previous trips and upcoming and current trip. Like I'm like, yes, because we've like played. There's been so much feedback on like which ordering should it be in? Should it be like newest or latest? And now it's just like it just is going to be great. So and then lots of.
I totally forgot. We're also making it just like look nicer. Like it's not just the navigation, like the actual look and feel of the trips themselves will look more like polished and nice as our wonderful designer Ursula says, she calls these updates juicy, like really cool. I don't know, it's like an inside Tern thing, but everyone does juice box emojis when she gives updates now, which I find hilarious. So it's gonna be
Wow.
really fun.
There you go. Like we're cooking, we've got juice. It's
I really thought you were going to go for the cooking with peanut oil, as our lovely
I
Southerner
almost
Dylan
did.
likes to say.
I pivoted last minute because I felt that was too inside
but
jokey.
yeah, no, the juice box was great.
Apparently,
That was an outside joke. I think it landed.
thanks, David. Appreciate it. Usually we get to make fun of you,
I
and
know I'm
now
like
for some
really
reason I'm
seizing
the
on
center.
this moment. I just gotta relish it for a second. But we'll move on. Brad, you want to talk about some quality of life updates that we were making?
Yes, I think you should sing them all. It'll be a good time. All right, so two quality of life updates we made this week. One, when you're marking a booking as booked, either if you're just tracking it on your own or if you're reporting it to your agency, we now have a little alert that shows up if you didn't put in the confirmation number there. This is really important for agencies, especially when reconciling commission, because often when suppliers pay them, the main identifier they give your agency is like, hey, here's the confirmation number for this booking that this commission amount is associated with. If you didn't give that to your agency, it's really hard for them to figure out which booking they're supposed to actually be paying you for. So we now have a more proactive alert there to make sure if you didn't include that, you can go back and add that in when you mark it as booked. And then we also had a little bug fix around quoting insurance options, so that previously there was just something weird where you had to like type in the policy date twice in order to actually make it work. Don't know exactly what was going on there, but now it should just work as expected, and you can just type it in once, and it just sticks. Shouldn't be a problem anymore.
That covers what we got done this week, which is like I think it's always kind of fun. Like we finished about these like 20-minute sections of what happened, and it was just a week. So it's
And it was a short week. It was the 4th of July, and we had half our team at RailsConf. So it was
wow. Wasn't
pretty
the
cool.
first track last week?
Well, when we record these podcasts, it was on a Wednesday. So the 4th of July was in between. So in terms of productivity days,
It would be the
right?
yeah.
Think your math's off.
The end thing's right though.
Last week was
Yeah, the end thing's right though. But just ignore everything Molly just said.
You guys, at this point, bye.
So it's been a busy 5 days of work time, but we did have people out for RailsConf, and so it is just really cool how much like the responsiveness and the execution and continuing to see that across the advisor product, the traveler product, the mobile experience. Like it's really fun. And next week we've got some more travel. It's going to be kind of a special week. We have roughly doubled the team this year, maybe even almost 2.5x the team this year. I think it's like pretty wild how many new people we have. And when people join Tern, we have this kind of virtual onboarding and all these different things, but we are hosting our first ever in-person new hire kind of orientation next week, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, bringing everybody actually to my hometown of Plymouth, Michigan, which I'm pretty excited about. And we've got lots of kind of fun events planned and team bonding. But one of the things I'm really excited about is we wanted to think through how do we take advantage of people being in person. We can do content and lectures and all that type of thing via Zoom. And we really wanted people to internalize what it's like to work in the travel industry. Because we've got people from engineering and from support and from all these different places and kind of backgrounds. And we're like, how do we really build empathy for what it's like to be a travel advisor? So most of the team doesn't even know this yet, but we're actually going to be doing a simulation where people have to role play different roles. Brad, Molly, and Katie and Brian are going to be travelers, and they're going to have, we're internalizing all the stories that we've heard from you on what the kind of, I'll call them most demanding clients require. And then all people within the new hire group will be assigned a travel advisor role, a supplier DMC role, an assistant role, kind of Lucia Copilot role. And they will literally have to like go through the full end-to-end process of like planning a trip, working with a supplier, creating an itinerary, giving feedback to the client. So that's going to be a really fun way, I think, to build some empathy for what you all do in a simulated environment. We'll see how it goes. We'll report back. But just a lot of stuff like that where like we're trying to take advantage of this in-person time. And so it should be really, really fun, but that'll be 3 days of the week next week. And so we'll report back on how that all goes. Molly,
Nothing like dropping the bomb
I
real
know,
time.
just watching
I
their faces.
know this.
To be fair, I did send an email about it like
Wow.
50 minutes ago. So I think everyone's been in meetings since I sent the email. But surprise, it's happening. And besides playing the role of a traveler, Molly, what are you up to next week?
Well, if I'm still with the company, then I'm going to get to talk about, the latest mobile app upgrades for both editor and the new like trips landing page, which will be really exciting. We also have some work that we're doing to make sure that when new users sign up for Tern for the first time, it feels a little bit more like guided and less scary to get started, which I'm really, really excited about. So like also like shout out if you're an agency owner, making sure when your teams come on board for the first time, there's just like nicer empty states for the pages. Like when I first land on a page and it has no trips, like help me get started, help me help tell me what to do. When you first land and create a trip, a new trip, like what should I do first? Where should I go? How should I think about it? So stuff like that, that we're going to be like sneaking in here and there that I think will go a long way for those new users, which will be really exciting.
So cool. Yeah, I'm really excited about that. Like making it feel intuitive and guided, and some of the mocks there. It's like little in the grand scheme of things, but like it's gonna make such a big difference. So exciting. Brad, how about you? Hosting some more dinners?
Yeah, we're gonna. I think aren't we going to your house next week for dinner?
That's
I
true.
think you're hosting next week.
Yeah.
All right. Well, beyond going to David's house for dinner, we're going to be getting out more improvements for the contract forms we were talking about earlier. So we do know, now you can at least collect information for multiple travelers in a form, but still kind of annoying if you're like, hey, it's a lead traveler, it's a parent, and they're traveling with their kids, and you want to make sure you have the like lead traveler's email, but you don't really have emails for the kids. Well, right now you can't actually require it just for the lead and not for the rest. So we're going to be adding support for things like that, and then making it so that when you do fill out a form with multiple people in that form, those people end up related on the back end, so that you don't have to go back and say, oh, like this was this person's kid, let me go add them as a relationship. We'll just automatically add those relationships when the form is submitted. And so that should both like just make it much easier to find those kind of households, if you will, of who's all related when they come in through a form like that. And then also just make it so you don't have like to enter as much information for each kind of subsequent traveler when your folks are filling that out. Molly, anything to add there?
Yeah, just maybe two quick things. So I think at least to start, we're not going to do anything like prompting the person filling out the form to give us the actual relationship. So it'll be like set to other on the contact. So like if the lead travelers, the mother, and they're filling it out for their kids, we'll log that structured relationship as other. You can always adjust it, but to Brad's point, what that will do is kids don't have to have an email, but we won't create duplicate records every time we get new information on them, because we know they're related to the mother, so they don't actually need unique emails to be like a unique record in our system and do the matching that we have, which is just a complaint that comes up all the time. So it's going to be like really, really great to get that done. It's also important for some of our consortia integrations to not have to actually have the concept of an email in terms of like, or actually how emails work in Tern versus how they work in those consortium, which we don't have to get into the details of. So it's going to be a lot of really, I think, exciting things related to that set of work.
So cool. And yeah, I mean, just like it's one of those things. It doesn't really even sound simple, but the idea of like how do you calculate like relationships and understand who somebody is related to that is like quite complex, but is going to be such a game changer. So lots of cool things as always coming down the pipeline, and all driven by your feedback, listening, learning, and shipping updates to the product every single week is how we operate here at Tern. And as always, this is the best place to learn about everything, to kind of get the behind the scenes look into how we're thinking about product, how we think about building a technology company in the travel industry. So thank you for spending the past kind of 35 or so minutes with us. If you enjoyed it, let us know in the comments. If you've got questions, let us know. Like, subscribe. It really does help us know that people are actually listening to us. So appreciate you all, and we will see you next week. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.